Hello everyone, welcome to the theory lesson 27. This is going to be one of our most important lessons in theory. Today you're going to get an introduction to the Q&A. So we're going to be going over the light board here. All right, so before we do that, we're going to go over our first part of the lesson, and then I'll let you know before we start into that. So if you want to pause it, you can, and take a quick break if you'd like. All right, so before we do that, let's go ahead and cover our evaluation on lesson 26. Ready? Number 1 is honor. Honor your parents. Honor. Number 2 is breath. The horse has interesting breath. Number 3, certainly. I will certainly try. Number 4, accept. Did you accept her apology? Number 5, birthday. When is the birthday party? Number 6, north. Head north on the highway. Number 7, advantage. Don't take advantage of the situation. Number 8, bright. That is a bright light. Number 9, honest. Were you honest with them? Number 10, difference. What difference does it make? Number 11, building. The building has been completed. Number 12 is, now the rest of these are going to be numbers, okay? So the number 12 is going to be $20 million. Okay, number 13, $745.26. $745.26. Number 14, $1,529. Notice I didn't say dollars. And the last one, $250,774.38. So let me say that again, $250,774.38. All right, so let's go ahead and compare on our chart, see how you did. Okay, number 1, honor. That would be H-O-N, come back for O-R, honor. And it's not a long O. We don't say on or, it's honor. Okay, number 2, breath, B-R-A-E-G-T. Number 3, certainly, S-E-R-N-L. Number 4, accept, S-E-P. Number 5, birthday, B-I-R-G-T. Come back for D, long A. Number 6, north, initial N, final G-T. Number 7, advantage, V-A-N-G. Number 8, bright, B-R, long I-G-T. Number 9, honest, H-O-N, come back for E-F-T. Number 10, difference, D-I-F-S. Number 11, building, initial B, final LG. Okay, and the rest will be numbers. $20 million, so 20 together. Come back for initial M, final L, and then come back for final DZ. Then we've got $745.26. So you're going to hit your 7, come back for HUN, 100. 45, 4, 5 together. Come back for final DZ. Then you come back for 2, 6 together. Come back for final S for cents. All right, then we've got 1,529. 1, come back for THOU. Come back for 5. Come back for HUN, HUN. Come back for 29. We didn't say dollars, so 1,529, no dollars. Okay, and the last one, $250,774.38. So that's going to be 2. Come back for HUN. Come back for 50. So you're going to strike your 50. Come back for thou, THOU. Come back for your 7. Come back for your HUN, HUN. Come back for 7. Come back for 4. Come back for final DZ for dollars. 38 can be stricken together, and then come back for final S for cents. All right, so if you struggled with that, practice those. All right, don't go forward until you feel comfortable. This is a really important lesson. Today you're going to learn about final GS for shun. So you're going to use the final GS, which is done with your ring and pinky on your right hand, GS. So make sure you get these 2 fingers up so you don't shadow those. So you're striking your GS with your right hand. And if you remember, if you recall, we learned about the brief information, which is FOGS. And if you hear that shun, that's why we use that GS for shun. So that's what you're learning today. We're using final GS for the shun sound as a word ending. Okay? The usual English spelling is TION, SION, CION, or CIAN. Add the GS to the final stroke of the word when possible. Sometimes we can't always add it, but we want to always put it in with the word, with the whole stroke if possible. If not, then we come back with final GS by itself. So let's look at our first line of words. We have passion. So that's PAGS, shun, passion. So again, it's not a hard stroke. It's more learning to read what you wrote and recognizing that it's a shun word. So when you see PAGS, you want to practice reading those words so you know that's a shun word, passion. It is going to look a little foreign, PAGS. Okay? Then we have fashion, FAGS, fashion. Nation, and long AGS. Notice that's all one stroke because we can put it in one stroke. We always want to add the GS in the same stroke as the main form of the word. And the only time we come back for final GS by itself is when we can't. And we are going to get into some of those words. So line 2, we've got option, OPGS, caution, KAUGS, caution. Session, SEGS, session. Line 3, impression. Now here's some 2-stroke words. So we've got I am for M, and then we come back for PREGS. Again, we can put the GS with the PRE. So it's still with pression. Okay, we're not coming back for a separate stroke. Ambition, AM, come back for BIGS, ambition. Decision, again, remember our rule with the prefix DE, we do a D long E, so it doesn't look like did he, decision. Okay, so we're going to do D long E, come back for SIGS, decision. Okay, line 4, suspicion, vacation, occasion, repression. Again, that's a shorty because it's the prefix RE. Okay, we only use a long E when we've got DE or just E by itself, so it doesn't look like he. Okay, tradition, sensation, line 6, concussion, permission, nutrition, that's a long U. Line 7, audition, precaution. Let's go back to audition. Notice we're not leaving out the I, so we're writing it as A-U-D, odd. Come back for I-G-S, audition. Okay. Precaution, again, pre is a prefix, so we're using the shorty, P-R-E, caution. Now, let's look at contortion. That's a tricky one. Anytime we have a word that ends with an R-G-S, you're going to have to be very careful with that. So let's look at contortion, K-O-N, come back for T, long O-R-G-S. Now, because we're not including the B, that means you're going to have to get your middle finger up in the air so that it doesn't strike the B, okay? So I'm pointing that out right now. Anytime you have a word that ends with R, shun, you have to get that finger up so it doesn't hit that B, okay? That's going to take some practice on your part. Okay, line 8, deception, tradition, invasion. Line 9, expansion, caption. Again, we can do that all in one stroke. K-A-P, shun. You want to keep it as few strokes as possible to save time. Okay, indignation, nutrition, vocation, confusion. Line 11, dimension, lotion. Lotion can be done in one stroke. Adhesion. Line 12, ignition, adaptation. Now, I've had some students ask me in the past, can we do AD together? Well, because that's a word that starts with an A, usually we like to just start with A and then come back for D-A-P-T, adaptation, okay? Application, and the only reason why we break that one up is because if we can't really put P-L-I-K together, okay, with application. Okay, so that's why we break that one up. A-P, application, long A-G-S. Okay, notice we didn't leave out the long A. We don't want to leave out the long A, but otherwise it would read application. Okay, so you want to add the long A in there. Okay, fixation, location, nation, probation. Again, it's P-R-O is a prefix, so we don't need to do the long O. Conversion, confession, repulsion, discretion, demotion, admission, ambition, remission, session, that can be done in one stroke, explosion, devotion. So don't forget about your long vowels, okay? That's still important. Otherwise, it'll change the whole word. Okay, so looking on over to the next page, 27.1 continues. We've added a lot of words. Obviously, you're not getting every word possible that ends with shun, but we wanted to give you quite a few so that you could really get this concept down, okay? Line 18, notion, ocean. Good ocean, long ocean, ocean, promotion. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump down to line 24. Again, if you look at the third word over, version, again, that's going to be a tricky word. B-E-R, shun. So there's our R, and here's our shun. We have to get that middle finger up. You don't want to strike that B. Okay. All right, so instead of going through all of these, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next page. Okay, they are written out for you, so as you're writing them, you can see how they're supposed to be written out. Okay. I would advise that you go through and write these before you start the homework. It'll make it a lot easier. Okay, now I want to go over the third page, 27.1. Go over to the third page because I want to show you line 39, submersion. Again, there's another word that has the R shun. That's a tricky one. Keep that middle finger up. Line 40, we've got aversion, inversion, conversion. All of those are tricky. Line 41 as well, torsion, insertion, contortion. Again, they're all of the R shun. So keep that middle finger up. Okay, now let's go down to line 44. You're going to see consumption. This is an example of a word where we have to come back for shun by itself. And the reason is because we write it as con, okay, K-O-N, and then come back for S-U-M. My fingers are on the M, so I can't possibly write shun with the M, with my fingers on the M. Okay, so in that case, we would write consum and then coming back for shun by itself because we have to. Okay, there's no possible way to throw that in there with the final M. Okay, so that's an example of a word having to come back for the final shun by itself. Okay, now there's some words that have two ways that you can write it, and it's noted on your handout. For instance, transportation. You can either hear a Z or an S depending on how you say it. So that's why you have you've got a choice there. And then altercation. Some people like to say alt, and other people say all, and then ter. So it depends on where you hear the break. Okay, same with aggravation, exploitation, secretion, fabrication. Those are all choices there. You can either do the first or the second choice. Or, like the way I like to do it is, when you get into speeds, you put it both ways in your dictionary, and then no matter how you write it, it's always going to come up. That way you're covered no matter what. That's always the safe choice. So when you get into speeds, I would add both of those into your dictionary, and then no matter what, it will come up. Okay? All right, so let's look at line 48 and 49. All of those words are having to come back for shun by itself. Redemption. Re-dem, and then I have to come back for shun by itself. Okay? Consumption. My finger's on the M, so I have to come back for shun. Absorption. So we've got ab, S, long O-R-P. It's too hard to do this when your finger's on the P. So it's another word that you have to come back for shun by itself. Okay? Exemption. E-X. Come back for EM, come back for final shun by itself. Okay. All right. Now we're going to move into our sentences. Okay, 27.2, we've got practice sentences. Now I want to direct your attention to line 5. What options do you have? Go ahead and underline do you have. I know that we don't point out we no longer point out phrases, but this is one that I want to point out because we haven't talked about it. You can absolutely, and I want you to phrase do you have. So you've got do, you, final V for have. That's a great phrase. Do you have. Okay, so underline that, phrase that whole thing. Okay, all right. And then I want to talk about line 6, the second sentence. It says the court ruled on the motion. You're going to want to flag court. The rule is anytime they use court and they're talking about the judge, we want to capitalize that. That's a rule. Okay, when you get into speeds, that will be a rule. So the easy way to know whether or not they're talking about the judge as opposed to I need to go to court. If I were to say I need to go to court, no, that's not capitalized, that's lowercase, so you wouldn't have to flag it. But anytime they're talking about the judge and they refer to him as the court, just ask yourself, if I can replace judge with court, then I know, and it works, I know that that needs to be capitalized. So in this case, you can say the judge ruled on the motion. So you know they're talking about the judge, and in that case, it needs to be capitalized, so you're going to flag court, okay? The same thing down in line 13, second sentence. The court will make the decision, and you can say the judge will make the decision. So you know the court is flagged because it needs to be capitalized, okay? Now, the interesting thing about that is if someone were to say the judge ruled on the motion, we would not capitalize judge. So it's only when they use court in place of the judge, then that's when we capitalize it. So I like to let you know that that can be, you can use that tool. If I can replace judge with court and it works, then I know I need to capitalize court. But if they were to say the judge ruled on the motion, it's not capitalized. So interesting little fact there. Okay. All right. And then in line 10, second sentence over, it says, how much will the donation be? Don't forget, B is final B. Sometimes I see people using the B over here, and that's our brief for about. Or they use BE, and that would be about he. B long E is the B that would sting you. So BE is just final B. All right. Don't forget about that. All right, looking over next page, 27.2 continues. And I want to talk about additions. So if you look at line 22, second sentence, it says, I want to buy the new additions. Okay, we've got additions, E-D-I-T-I-O-N-S, and then we've got addition in line 32. I want an addition to the house. There's two different ways to write that. So the first one in line 22, this addition just came out, or I went to buy the new additions, is going to be written as ED, come back for I shun. Okay, ED, come back for I shun. And then looking down at line 32, I want an addition. According to the spelling, it's very, you know, the difference between the two spellings. That would be A, come back for D, I shun, for addition, okay? Now looking at line 28, it says her gown was a real creation. Now I know that that word is spelled EA, which we usually use our AE reversal, but in this case, we're going to write creation as two strokes because it overrides the AE reversal rule due to each vowel making its own sound. So we have cre and then ation. So the way we're going to write that is KR long E, cre, and then we're going to come back for long A, shun. Okay? All right, line 31, second sentence, it says, give me a portion of the soup. Soup is a long U, S long UP, soup. And then line 32, second sentence, it says, add additional broth. Additional would be A, come back for D, I, shun, come back for AL, additional. All right, add, ADD, is going to be AD with the flag, ADD with the flag. Okay, so you're gonna strike AD with the flag. The reason being, the reason why you flag it is because you don't want it to conflict with AD, as in I put in ad, or I advertised in the newspaper and I have a newspaper ad. So newspaper ad, AD, would just be AD. ADD is going to be A flag D. Okay, so we've got two different words there. ADD as opposed to AD. All right, so make those notes there so you don't forget. All right. And then I talked about additional. Just want to go over that again one more time. A, come back for D, I, shun. Addition, come back for AL. All right, 27.2 continues on the next page. There's really nothing there to point out. Everything is pretty standard there from what we just went over. 27.3, we've got some new briefs. First one we have is object. Object is OB. Object, OB. Then we have objection, OBGS. Again, there's our shun. So it's very fitting to write it as OBGS. Objection. Then we have I object, IB. I object, IB. We object. Notice we object is flagged. The reason why it's flagged is because we don't want it to conflict with web. So we object is going to be WEB with the flag. Okay. And again, if you want, when you get into speeds, if you decide we object comes up more often than web, you can flip it until you can flip the ones that you flag and tell your software that you want to flag web and just write we object as WEB. That's up to you. That's something you can do when you get into speeds. You'll have that flexibility. That's personally what I do because I feel like we object comes up more often than web, but that'll be totally up to you. Okay. You can tell your software whatever you want, and it's very easy just to say, okay, I want to write we object is web, and then web would be flagged. You can do that. You have the flexibility. But for now, in theory, this is the way that it's taught, so we want to stick with that. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to line 3. Yes, ma'am is YEM. Yem. YEM for yes, ma'am. Notice that when you write yes, ma'am, YEM, the comma is included in it. Okay, so that's very nice. Now, if you ever make a mistake, let's say you write yes, ma'am, and you accidentally throw in the S, obviously the software won't recognize it as a phrase. So then you would have to put in the comma if you had to change that and correct it. So then you would have to absolutely put that comma in. It's yes, comma, ma'am. But if you write it correctly, then your software is going to recognize it as a brief or a phrase, and it's going to do it for you. Yes, comma, space, ma'am. Notice there's an apostrophe, M-A''A'-M. That's the way that it's spelled. Same with no, ma'am. No, ma'am. N-O-M. Okay, so that's going to throw in the comma for you. The only reason why it wouldn't is if you write it incorrectly and it doesn't recognize it, and then you would have to correct it, and you would have to physically put in the comma. Okay, kind of like yes, sir, no, sir. All right, line 4. We've got uh-huh and huh-uh. So even though you hear attorneys and the judge or the court will often say, we don't say uh-huh or huh-uh, even though we admonish the witnesses to not say uh-huh or huh-uh, it happens. People just automatically say uh-huh or huh-uh, so we have to have a way to write that. So, and we write everything phonetically, so we have to be able to say, yes, they said uh-huh or they said huh-uh. So the way that we write that with the brief is uh-huh is going to be written as uff. Uh-huh, uff. Just like huh-uh, which means no, is huff. So uh-huh means yes, huh-uh means no. So we have uff for yes, huff for no. Notice that it is hyphened there. UH hyphen HUH. Okay, just like huh-uh is HUH hyphen UH. Again, if you were to accidentally write huh-uh, huff, and let's say I accidentally shadowed the P, it's not going to show up correctly, so I would have to physically go in there in the edit mode if that were a test or if that were a job, and I would have to correct it, and I would definitely put in the hyphen. The hyphen is required. Okay. Line 5, Your Honor. Your Honor is Y-U-R-N, urn. Okay, Y-U-R-N. Notice that honor has a capital H. Your Honor, capital H. It always has a capital H, okay? So again, if I accidentally throw in my S and I write Your Honor and it doesn't come out, I'm going to use a capital H on honor. And now if Your Honor comes up in the beginning of the sentence, it would be capital Y. If it's in the middle of the sentence, then no, I wouldn't need a capital Y, but I always need a capital H on honor. Okay, let's look at O. O, I didn't know that. Okay, so we have a way to write O. It's long O, RBGS, which is fitting because O always is followed by a comma. Oh, I didn't see that you called them. So the way we write O is all in one stroke. It's going to be long O, RBGS, all in one stroke. Oh, okay. So again, it's O, comma, okay. All right, so we write that as long O, RBGS in one stroke. Line 6, overruled, long O, effer, LD, long O, effer, LD. Okay, now I do hear some reporters will say, oh, I write it as O, effer, LD. I don't use the long O. Well, in theory, go ahead. I want you to write it as long O, effer, LD. You can change it in speeds if you want to, but for now in theory, we're doing everything the way that we're taught, the right way, and then you're going to pick up little things here and there that you want to tweak or change when you get into speeds. Okay, so overruled, O, long O, effer, LD. It's like a squeeze. Okay, then we have sustained, which is ST long A-N-D, stained. Again, you'll hear people say, well, what happens if you hear the word stained? I stained the glass, or it's stained glass. You actually would write that as ST long AN, come back for final D, so it doesn't conflict with sustained. Okay. Now, line 7 and 8, we have that is correct, that's correct. That is right, that's right. There is a difference between the two. Now, remember, as a court reporter, you are writing everything verbatim, so there's a difference between that is correct and that's correct. So we have to have really good hearing, and we're writing exactly what we hear. So when we hear that is correct, we write that as T-H-A-R-K. That is correct. Okay, then we have that's correct. That's correct. If they say that's correct, meaning the contraction, the apostrophe S, we're throwing in the E. That's correct. T-H-A-E-R-K. T-H-A-E-R-K. That's correct. All right, then we have that is right. T-H-A-R-T. That is right. Then we have the contraction. That's right. Again, we're throwing in the E. T-H-A-E-R-T. So that's the only difference. We're throwing in the E with the contraction. Okay. Then we have, is that correct? Is that correct? The only thing we're throwing in is the S. Is that correct? S-T-H-A-R-K. Is that correct? Is that right? S-T-H-A-R-T. Is that right? So that's the only thing that we're throwing in is the S. Okay? All right. So those are your new briefs and phrases. And again, those are going to, you're going to hear those with the new Q&A that you're learning. These are briefs and phrases that you're going to hear over and over with attorneys especially, okay? All right. Let's look over now at 27.4. We've got practice sentences with our new briefs and phrases. Notice in line 3, the second sentence, it says, I object, comma, Your Honor. Notice the honor is capitalized. All right. If you see a comma there after I object, you're going to want to strike your comma. Okay. I object, comma, so strike your RBGS. Now, looking at line 6, where it says, no ma'am, comma, we didn't go. If you use your phrase, no ma'am, N-O-M, you won't have to strike your comma in between no ma'am, it does it for you. But then after no ma'am, you want to strike your comma. No ma'am, comma, we didn't go. Same with the next sentence. No ma'am, comma, I never saw the person. Okay. All right, line 7, comma, that's correct. Comma, that is correct. So again, you want to strike your comma there after Same with line 8. Comma, I didn't go. Comma, it's not true. Line 9, Your Honor, comma, I can't hear. You got to strike your comma there. Okay, Your Honor, comma, I will object to that question. Again, you want to phrase anything that's possible. Line 10, Oh, comma, that's right. Again, don't forget, Oh, excuse me, already has a comma in it. That's why we strike long O, RBGS. You don't have to strike the comma again, otherwise you'll get 2 commas. Okay, so that's included, right? The only way it wouldn't be is if you misstroked O, your brief O. All right, Oh, comma, that is right. All right, so those are your practice sentences using your new briefs and phrases. Now, 27.5 are derivatives. That just means you're taking a brief and you're adding a prefix or a suffix. So we've got considerable. All right, so consider, you're using your brief, consider, initial K, final R, and then bowl, coming back for BL, considerable. Advantageous, you can either write that with using the brief VANG for advantage, come back for US, or you can use your brief advantage, VANG, come back for YUS. Either one works. Okay. Acceptance, SEP, come back for ANS. Opinionated, so you use your brief for opinion, come back for long AT, come back for final D. Unanswered, so again, we've got a prefix un, and then you're going to use your brief for answer, come back for final D. Secretarial, use your brief for secretary, come back for YAL. Individualized, use your brief for individual, come back for long IZ. Uncertain, UN, come back for your brief for certain. Differently, use your brief for different, come back for LAE. Generalized, JEN, use your brief for general, come back for long IZ. Inconvenient, your prefix IN, come back for V long EN. Insufficient, your prefix IN, come back for SUF. Right. 27.6, we've got practice sentences using your derivatives. So again, those are pretty self-explanatory. There's nothing really to point out there. 27.7, we've got some consonant compounds. We're going to focus on final FT, and THR on the initial side. THR on the initial side, so make sure you get that middle finger up so you don't hit the P. THR, okay? So we've got soft, lift, tuft, draft, raft, left, craft, drift, sift, rift, loft, gift, soft, cleft, shaft. Line 4, swift, graft, theft, adrift. Again, you're going to use your A, come back for D-R-I-F-T. Okay. Uplift. And just a reminder, line 3, with loft, remember, you can't write it as L-O-F-T. That would be lost. Okay, we write loft as L-A-U-F-T. Remember, we had to change that. All right. Line 5, thrash, thrift, threat. There's our AE reversal. Thrill, thrust. Now we're going to talk about line 6, throw and throw. The first throw is what you refer to as I will throw the ball. And then we've got throw, the second throw, T-H-R-O-E. That one is not used as often. That's a pain or a spasm or a painful struggle. So because that is spelled T-H-R-O-E, we're going to keep it the same way, T-H-R long O, okay? O-E, just like it's spelled. The first throw, throw the ball, is spelled T-H-R-O-W. So basically we're going to use the U for the W. So throw the ball is going to be written as T-H-R-O-U. throw. Okay, even though that's the more common word, we're writing it the way that it's spelled. Okay, so we're just borrowing the U for the W. So Throu, as opposed to throw, which is written Thr long O, which is a pang or a spasm. Okay, the same with thrown and thrown. Thrown, okay, the ball was thrown, Throun. Again, we're borrowing the U for the W. Okay, as opposed to thrown, he sat on the throne, going to be written as Thr long On, throne. Then we have thread, line 7, through, and then we've got through. Okay, so the first through, he threw the ball. That's going to be written as Thr short U, as opposed to through. He walked through the tunnel. That's going to be written as Thr long U, which is pretty easy to remember because Through is the longer word. So we're going to use the longer vowel for the longer word as opposed to Threw. That's the shorter word, so we're going to just use the short U. Then we have throb, thrombus, threaten, threefold, throng, thrush, thrifty, throat. Throat is a long O. Some of these may not show up on your dictionary, and it's okay on your software. It just means it hasn't been added to your dictionary. So don't panic, don't worry, okay? Especially if you write it a few times and you realize it's not coming up. It just means it hasn't been added. Those are all things you can do when you get into speeds, okay? All right, moving on over to 27.8, we've got practice sentences. Line 1, there is graft in the bureau. Let's look at bureau. Bureau is going to be B long U-R. Bure, come back from long O. Bureau. Now, let's look at line 4, second sentence. That pillow is too soft. I've had students ask me, can we phrase is too? I don't think you should phrase it. It's too awkward to read. Is too, it's going to look like S-T-A-O, stew. I wouldn't phrase that. When you get into speeds, you can if you want, but for now, I'd keep it as 2 strokes. Is, and then come back for T-A-O. Okay. Line 5, she was deft at her work. Work is a short O. Okay. Let's look down at line 8. Loft the ball onto the green. Let's talk about onto. Onto, in this case, is one word. So when it's one word, we're going to use O-N, come back for T-O. Okay? When we have the situation where onto is 2 words, that's when we can use the brief for on. But when it's one word, we don't want to use the brief on, just O, because the software will separate it from 2. So, for example, onto, as one word, I fell onto the blade. You're going to write it as O-N. Okay, you're going to write it out so that the software keeps it together. As opposed to when it's 2 words. We will go on to do great things. In that case, it's 2 words, so then we can use our brief on and we come back with T-O. Okay? Okay. And line 9, throw the ball harder than that. Again, throw, T-H-R-O-U. Okay. Let's look at the second sentence in line 9. A roller coaster is a thrill. Roller coaster would be written as R long O-L. Come back for E-R. Coaster, K long O-F-T. Come back for E-R. Coaster. Line 10, second sentence. She is thrifty by nature. Let's look at nature. There's 2 ways you can write nature. You can either write it as N long A, come back for T-U-R, or you can write it as N long A, come back for T long U-R. Either way works. Nature, T-U-R, or nature, come back for T long U-R. Either way works. Line 12, first sentence. The stone was thrown hard. Again, throne, Throun. If you have a hard time with that, write it above the word and write it in steno so it helps you, as opposed to he sat on the throne, which is THRON. Okay, all the rest of the sentences look great. 27.9 is a brief review, so it's strictly a review, so we don't really have to go through that. You should know all of those briefs. Again, if you haven't already done so, I want you to get an address book and start writing down all your briefs from Theory 1 and what you've learned so far in Theory 2. Go over those every day so you don't forget them. You want to be able to see it and write it. You don't want to hesitate at all. If you hesitate, you need to practice those, okay? So that's just a brief review. 27.9. All right, now we're going to get into the introduction to Q&A, and I'm going to stop here because I want you to take a little break if you need to. I know this is going to be an extra long lesson. This is so important, so I want you to be able to have just a fresh outlook on this. I don't want you to be tired, so if you know, take a break, get something to eat if you need to, or take a walk, and I'm going to pause this, and then you're going to come back when you feel ready, and we're going to talk about the introduction to Q&A, and I'm going to dictate some Q&A to you. All right, so we'll see you soon.